In what may be the most shocking bit of news today, will report in a minute that retail investors in Tesla are not fooled by all the nonsense. And this morning, Tesla stock is up and was up more, but is still up nicely in a very down market. And the market's down for what reasons? It's unclear. There really isn't any news. There was some kind of a problem at Heathrow Airport where might have been terrorism shutting down the energy at Heathrow. But I mean, there really isn't anything else out there. This is Triple Witching Day, so lots of options trading, which might be impacting all kinds of things. Anyway, we'll take a look at all of that in a minute. But let's really start off with what was really the seriously best or most interesting news, and that was Elon's all hands on deck meeting last night. You know, when I first listened to it, because I spend so much time in the Tesla world, I was like, well, there wasn't really anything new there. And then I started going through it kind of line by line, and there was so much new. So let's take a minute and look through these. Maybe Larry and I will talk about it more today when he's on later today. Anyway, let's talk about the number one. They are going to be making a cybercab every 5 seconds. He says that cybercab line will be more like consumer electronics than a car factory. Now, you know that the current number, I think in Shanghai, is either 35 seconds, a car every 35 seconds or every 30 seconds, which is already a fraction of what most car companies do. I mean, a fraction, we're talking about maybe 2 or 3 minutes. So the 35 seconds is crazy already, but he's talking about 5 seconds per car. Anyway, I want you to visualize it, popping out a car every 5 seconds on a single line. This is revolutionary. It's not even close. Number two, they will eventually make millions of semi-trucks. Now, this is something that I just was asking the question again last week. Is 40 or 50,000 a year or 100,000 a year what their expectations are with regard to semi-trucks? No, their expectations are they're going to make millions of semi-trucks. Thank you. So Brian Wong is putting a thumbs up, I'm sure, right now, thinking about that, because he thinks it'll be maybe as many as 4 million of these big trucks a year at some point in the future. But that was definitely breaking news. Number three, the new mission for Tesla. We've been asking the question, what is the new mission? It's not clear. What is it? The new mission is sustainable abundance for everybody. So between CyberCabs energy and robotics, so the Optimus, Elon believes, and I think a lot of us believe, that the future is going to be abundant for everybody. It's going to help, as the technology revolution or the industrial revolution has done since the 1880s until now. It raises up everybody in the world in terms of the amount of wealth that they have. Now, it may not seem like much wealth, but when you go from pennies a day or $1 a day to $3 a day in earnings, that is a big improvement. Now we might be talking about going from $3 a day to $200 a day, which would be a massive change. All right, the next one was, in the future, solar plus battery will be 90% of all energy. So even as we talk about nuclear, even as we talk about fusion, fission, all kinds of other possibilities, Elon is saying, put the solar on your roof, put the power wall in your garage, and you can go off the grid. And he's saying he believes that in the future, 90% of all energy will be produced by that combination, not necessarily in your house, but the combination of solar and battery. That's so interesting. I mean, I know we all expected it to be big, but I didn't. 90% is a huge number. Number five, Optimus, with its new hand, is now in production. The first unit off the production line. Now, they've been building them by hand up till now, but the production line in Fremont is now operational. They're going to have a second line in Austin, so 2 lines already being set up. And they have produced the first unit off of the production line. They expect 5,000 this year as a bare minimum. That's like That's the low end of what they expect to manufacture in those two factories this year, but maybe 10 to 12,000. They bought product. The supply chain has got enough for 10 to 12,000 of the robots to be made this year, but maybe they'll only make 5,000 this year. Eventually, they say, Elon said, number 6 on my list, that they will eventually make 100 million Optimuses per year, Optimi per year. I'm sorry, we coined the word Optimi on this channel and took a poll, and we all decided that Optimi was the way to say it on plural. Anyway, so we will have the two factories initially. They will be making, you can imagine, if they can pop out one car every 5 seconds, like a consumer electronics product, how many Optimi will they be able to pop out? Certainly one every 5 seconds would be a minimum that you would anticipate in the future they will be able to make. Eventually 100 million. If you multiply that even times 30,000, it is 30. I forget now. I did the math last night. It's a lot. If $30,000 per unit in terms of a sell price times 100 million units, 30 trillion. Is that 30 trillion? Anyway, I'm not sure. Model Y will be the best-selling car on Earth again this year. That was a promise from Elon. I think he's 100% right. I think it'll be substantially up from last year, especially when we get unsupervised FSD. Number 8, expanding markets to many additional countries this year. He gave a list of the countries that we expanded into last year. I think there was about 7 new countries on the list from last year, and he says they'll be expanding into many new countries this year. I think we know India will be one of those on the list. He called out Cathie Wood again as being able to see the future, specifically with regard to robotaxi. We know that Cathie Wood has anticipated that Elon and Tesla will own 50% of that trillion-dollar market. Number 10, Optimus will not be available for delivery to third parties until the second half of next year. That changes my numbers a little bit, changes my analysis a little bit, because I figured they would start shipping early in 2026, but now they're saying second half of 2026. There was absolutely no mention at all of Model Q. That was not a good piece of news, but we'll see how that will undoubtedly, if we don't hear anything before, this will be a leading question on at the earnings call. Number 12, no, that was, I already said, they're making Optimus in Fremont and Austin. Number 13, he says Optimus is by far the most sophisticated humanoid robot. It's the only one with a brain. Now, that was an interesting statement. I'm surprised that none of the rest of these have a brain. And what does he mean by that? We need to flesh that one out a little bit, Elon. But he says by far the most sophisticated. And if you've been looking at some of the videos recently, there are some very clever robots out there. So we'd love to hear more about that. I'm suspecting that once we get a few dozen of these in the manufacturing facility doing jobs, we might start to see some videos again from Tesla. And then number 14, the 4680 is the cheapest cell of any competitor. Nobody out there is making a less expensive cell in terms of unit, energy per dollar. Again, love to have some more details on that. Also, some more details in terms of where we are on getting up to full production on that, on the first 4 lines, where we are in terms of ramping it up. That's a very, very big question. Again, I'm sure it'll be asked at the upcoming event. All right, let's see. Oh, this was an announcement that was not at the meeting yesterday. This is at a previous time, that Tesla will have guards now at all of their facilities, and they've turned on all of the Sentry modes on all of the cars that are parked at the various showrooms. So with regard to those who are intending to do damage or create problems at Tesla showrooms, I would recommend that you not do that. There'll be hundreds of cameras pointing at you, plus security guards on the premises. Maybe that'll stop some of the assaults that have been taking place with regard to, and when I say assaults, I don't mean physical. I mean, verbal is an assault, by the way. I learned that in law school. verbal, when you assault, when you go up in somebody's face and start yelling at them, that is an assault. Now, you may not get much money from a jury for doing it, but depending on the nature of the assault, the nature of what you've said, the amount of fear that the person felt, the amount of proof that they have that they were traumatized by it and caused pain, you might be able to get more than you think. The Wall Street Journal had a negative headline out today about individual stock owners selling their Tesla stock, talking about people that were all very excited about Tesla and really interested to own the stock, selling their stock. And, people were saying, well, we don't like what he's doing in DC, blah, 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 blah. But in that story, if you read the whole story, they were honest enough to say this. And this is kind of with all that big news that we just talked about from Elon last night, I kind of feel like this is the biggest news of the day. Individual investors have long flocked to the shares, says the Wall Street Journal article, betting that Musk's leadership can make Tesla worth far more than an ordinary car company. It was the kind of loyalty that inspired at least one to get the company's logo tattooed on their arm. Plenty of individual investors today, right now, at this very moment, I added all that, are still piling in. This is a specific and exact quote from the Wall Street Journal. Of the 8.3 billion that individual investors poured into single stocks last week, roughly 3.2 billion, that would be over a third of the money, about 40%. Yeah, almost exactly 40% of the money that poured into the stock market last week by individual investors was into Tesla, according to a Wednesday report from JP Morgan analysts. I mean, think about that for a minute. 40% of the money that retailers poured into stocks last week, retail investors, went into Tesla. You know where that money's coming from, in my opinion? That money's a little bit of it's coming from you and me and the other people that have been all in for a long time, are all in, are heavily invested in terms of their portfolio in Tesla for a long time. I think this is coming from conservatives, coming from the Republicans that are just really beginning to appreciate what Tesla is all about, what Elon is all about. What a wonderful heart the man has, how he just loves America, loves people, wants the best for everybody. I think this is Republicans getting it. Okay, from Barron's this morning. Tesla has a budding brand problem among liberals. The question for investors is whether CEO Elon Musk will realize it in time. Tesla stock was up 0.4% at 237 in the pre-market trading. It went up a lot more than that, over 3% last time I checked, while S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Futures were down 0.2% and little changed respectively. They're down a lot more than that. So we'll take a look at that in a few seconds. Likely to help the stock Friday was a target price cut. Likely not to help. I should have said unlikely to help. Likely not to help. Terrible English. Okay. Was a target price cut from Morgan Stanley analyst Adam Jonas. Sharply lower year-to-date delivery volume drives a mark-to-market of near-term estimates, writes Jonas in a report Thursday evening. His new call for first quarter deliveries is 351,000. That is exactly what we heard from Bradford Ferguson last night. I believe that's also about where TriTesla is, down from 415,000. That's a pretty big drop. His new stock price target is $410 a share. He dropped it all the way from 430 to 410. Would you be happy if the stock was back at 410? I'd be fine with being back at 410. He still rates Tesla stock a buy. Lower first quarter sales aren't particularly narrative changing for the analyst, who remains optimistic about Tesla's opportunity to leverage artificial intelligence expertise to create robots and self-driving cars. Jonas' sanguine view contrasts sharply with investors' current mood. Really? What did we just hear from the Wall Street Journal? Weak sales results and falling Wall Street estimates have stoked fears that Musk's political activities have alienated Tesla's core buyers, who are politically left-leaning people looking to go green. No, that's no longer the core buyer. The core buyer now is conservatives. The largest, if you talk about opening up India, there's like 12 people there that can afford a Tesla. If you talk about opening up the United States to conservative drivers, to conservative buyers, You're talking about a massive, massive potential TAM. There are reasons investors are nervous, it says. Interest in the cars seems to be dwindling. Searches for used Tesla cars were down 17% month over month and 7% year over year in February, according to cars.com. Oh, yeah, but what about searches for Tesla cars, new Tesla cars? It is vertical. They don't say that. Oh my gosh. Edmunds data also show that Tesla owners have traded in a record number of cars in March, according to reports. Yeah, the babies. Anyway, pricing for used Tesla vehicles also declined 6.6 year over year. My guesstimate would be that that has to do with the fact that Tesla vehicle prices have declined that much year over year. This is Randy Kirk. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit notify. If anything I said this morning you liked, please hit the like button. Don't forget to do that. It really helps the algo. And in this morning show, we do almost the same numbers every single day. We need to spread the word about the show. Is there anything in the show that you think, well, you're here, so you're enjoying it. So please tell other people about this morning show. I think we get more news compacted in the fastest amount of time, and it's very compact. I only pull out the stuff that's useful and helpful with regard to the markets, the economy, and Tesla. I think it's a great. I think that this is useful stuff. All right, the UAE, it says, pledges to spend $1.4 trillion in the next 10 years on American AI, semiconductors, energy, and manufacturers. This, I guess, will be added to the $1.7 trillion that Trump claimed yesterday. He had pledges from various companies. We've already heard a bunch of them. To build out America's manufacturing infrastructure. So if you add 1.4 to 1.7, that's the numbers are just crazy. $3.1 trillion of new money coming into the United States for manufacturing. Well, okay, here's Johnson & Johnson from Mario Nawfal is reporting. Johnson & Johnson's going to invest $55 billion in U.S. manufacturing. They will pour that into 4 new U.S. plants, including $2 billion in North Carolina, as looming 25% Trump tariffs on drug imports push pharma giants to onshore production. The massive expansion adds 5,000 construction jobs and 500 permanent positions, focusing on cancer and neurological medicines. 55 billion rather. That's probably in addition to what we just talked about a minute ago. I don't know why they mentioned 2 billion is going to go into North Carolina. Maybe did they already have a lot going on in North Carolina? Anyway, Axios this morning, that was, by the way, that was from an Axios article. Mario Nawfal also has this. Treasury Secretary, reciprocal tariffs hit April 2. We know that. Trade partners are already caving. This is from Secretary Bessent. If you don't like this guy, I don't know why. You should be listening to every single word he says. April 2nd is going to be a big day. We're going to roll out the reciprocal tariffs. Our most imbalanced trading partners already want to drop their tariffs. Okay, this is from Barron's this morning. Investors abroad. Now, this is important. There's so much important this morning in this news show, but this one is the retail investor story is important. All the stuff that Elon talked about last night, but remember the bonds are controlling right now. And we've been asking the question, why are they still sitting at 4.24, 4.23? Here we go. Investors abroad sold longer term, the 10-year, 20-year, treasuries for 3 consecutive months, a sign central bankers are reducing their reliance on the U.S. as a financial buffer. In January, foreigners sold a net $13.3 billion of U.S. notes and bonds that had more than 1 year to maturity. The latest Treasury data shows it comes after a $49.69 billion was sold in December and $34.41 billion in the month after the U.S. elections, November. So ever since Trump has come into office, these foreign governments have been selling the bonds. Global central banks represent a big chunk of foreign demand, of course. Before the back-to-back net selling of the world's safest debt, foreigners had kept buying for 15 previous straight months. The largest net seller in January was Canada. The UK was the largest buyer in January after having been the largest net seller in December. Norway and Japan were the second and third largest net buyers in January. Norway, Japan, and UK, largest net buyers in January, respectively. Goldman said in a note, the rationale for selling can be explained in two ways. Threats of sanctions, freezing of foreign assets, and tariffs work because of the role U.S. work and tariffs because of, I'm sorry, central banks working to shield their own economy from any potential U.S. punitive action in the future could be reducing their use of dollars. To buy treasuries, central banks exchange their own currency for dollars. To sell, they do the reverse. Conversely, central banks across the world have been consistently buying gold, replacing one safe haven asset for another. This so-called act of de-dollarization isn't new, but it's taken a life of its own after the U.S. froze Russian assets. Central banks added 1,045 tons to global gold reserves in 2024, exceeding 1,000 tons for the third straight year. So people, as we know, people have been buying, governments have been buying up gold now for a long time. That's why we're over $3,000 per ounce. The switch over to gold is a potential concern I'm hearing discussed more in the last couple of months, according to Philip Wool, Chief Research Officer, Portfolio Manager at Rayland Global Advisors, telling Barron's, I think there's going to be a more of a long-term trend. It depends on whether the U.S. continues exploiting the dollar's reserve status as a geopolitical tool. So this will be interesting. This could end up being a big reversal. So as the bond market continues to actually, the interest rates yields go down as people start pouring into bonds, retail investors, institutions, et cetera, regardless of what these national organizations, the national sovereign wealth funds do, and the central banks, we could see this. I'm expecting bonds, as you know, to be in the threes, probably 3.5 by the end of the year. This could also reverse gold. So this is not investment advice. I'm just explaining how it works. As the interest rates go down, because people are going into bonds, they might be pulling money out of gold to do that. Another reason could just be a routine realignment of debt. Though the dollar is down in 2025, the dollar's value rose by 4.2% from November to January. When rates are high and the dollar is strong, global central banks often sell treasuries. That limits the depreciation of their local currency while avoiding the higher costs of hedging their currency against the dollar. Foreign demand of treasuries is being watched by Wall Street because a more prolonged drop in net sales could remove a line of support in the U.S. It could also mean that de-dollarization efforts have taken stronger hold. Although it would take a lot more than selling a few U.S. treasuries to make a measurable dent, 88% of foreign exchange transactions use what? The dollar. Add to that, the foreign holdings of all U.S. securities, short and long, has stayed the same in January and December at $8.53 trillion. It ticked only slightly lower than November's $8.63 trillion. That's because the net selling gets reported at market value, not face value, and the changes in market values can offset the monthly selling. So it's called the valuation effect. The existing treasury holdings move not only because of net purchases of our sales, but also because interest rates move up and down. Deutsche Bank's U.S. head of rates research, Matthew Raskin, told Barron's, all this cushions the blow somewhat, but it can make investors turn a blind eye to foreign central banks pulling back on treasuries. So pay attention to that. That's one more thing to add to our list of the things we know that might impact what we're doing. All right, so what we've got right now is Tesla was up 3% at one point. It's still up 1.36%, as the Dow is down 0.87%, NASDAQ is down 0.58%, S&P is down 0.73%. That's strong on the S&P. So with all three of those down strongly, for Tesla to be up 1.32 is quite and actually headed higher right now. Actually, everything is headed a little higher right now. Magnificent Seven is mixed, with Apple down a bit, Google down, Amazon and Meta up, and Microsoft and NVIDIA down. NVIDIA down strongly, 1.73%. After that, great call. Actually, I didn't see that much new in the NVIDIA information yesterday at the talk he gave. Was that yesterday or 2 days ago? But anyway, NVIDIA down 1.78% this morning, as again, Tesla up 1.29. Cathie Woods are also mixed, but mostly down. Yes, Square is up. Yeah, it's really bizarre. Anyway, but I did explain it the other day. It's because they were so beaten down. All right. And like I say, the trend right now looks to be heading upward. Let's go ahead on the bonds. What we have on bonds is down. The 10-year is down I'm sorry. That's just, sometimes I got to wait for it to refresh. Now we have a flat 10-year. It was down nicely. It's now flat, 4.235. Actually up 0.2 of a basis point right now, 4.235. The 2-month up 0.9 of a basis point, and the 2-year up, I'm sorry, down 2.4. That's, wow, what an interesting, so you have the 2-year down, but the 2-month and the 10-year slightly up. Bizarre. I mean, I look at this twice a day, every day, and you rarely see that combination, that very rare combination this morning. All right, let's look at oil, which was pretty even last time I checked. Boy, I've just messed up everything here. How will I get out of here? Here we go. All right, let's take a look at oil. Oh, it's now down 2 cents. So it's up 2 cents, down 2 cents. Anyway, it's not moving very much. We're sitting at 68 and 72 respectively. That's with some change. Natural gas up 0.75, back over $4. It's been moving back and forth around the $4 mark for several days. By the way, the oil patch, the OPEC is now saying that they're maybe going to take some oil off the table, as opposed to their theory that maybe after April they would be adding. Now they're saying they might have to take off the table, especially if Russia gets back into being approved. Iran, though, that might be oil off the table also. So there's a lot of back and forth. I think the biggest thing is, and I saw a headline to this effect, but I would have said it without the headline, is that Trump is saying we're going to drill, and we're going to create a lot of energy in the United States. And it doesn't matter what all the rest of these people do if the United States decides to get serious about serious drilling. Also, Trump mentioned that he might allow Chevron to start pulling oil out of Venezuela again. So he's trying to open up that negotiation to see if he can get a little more Venezuela cooperation, maybe get rid of that idiot that's running the country. Okay, gold down $30 this morning, down to 3,013. That's the first really serious down day in a while. Silver down also 1.77, under 34 at 33.39. And copper down a full % at $5.06. That is, again, first time copper's been down in a while after getting over $5 for the first time ever. Record numbers. The dollar is steadying but strong. The Bitcoin down $198. Call that unchanged at 84,000 even, roughly, almost exactly. And there you go. Chicago Fed President Goolsbee sees rate cuts depending on inflation progress. Why is that even a headline? But that's like such a non-statement. It says absolutely nothing. All right. So later today, what do we got? Yes, of course, it's Friday. It's Larry Goldberg. Then later on, it's Brian Wong, who will be on at 7:45 tonight. You need to join. You need to do Patreon. Please do Patreon. Last night, CERN Basher. Here is the card right here. You want to go back and watch CERN Basher. He will also be joining again tomorrow morning. On Saturday morning, we'll have a CERN Basher show. It will be fabulous, as always, of course, but we will be looking at Tesla stock valuations based on the future and the fact that here's a shocking concept. Would you think that there's any chance that right now the actual PE on Tesla is about 2? What does that even mean? Oh, check it out tomorrow morning. I'm sorry, tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, when CERN Basher will be back with us explaining how the real PE of Tesla right now is about 2. This is Randy Kirk. It has been great talking to you.